Hi, everyone. This is Marilyn Bradford, and I would like to welcome you to my Left Turn podcast. What is your left turn? Writing a blog, parenting in a different way, letting go of the old because you are aware of something greater. Left turns are choices we can all make. It's about a willingness to step into the unknown in any area of your life, to trust yourself, to risk creating or trying something new. It's about letting your true uniqueness shine. The greatest people who have lived, artists, statesmen, writers, explorers, musicians, have all been people willing to turn left. What capacities do you have that you have not acknowledged? What would your life and the world be like if you were willing to turn left? Welcome, everyone, to this Left Turn podcast. Today, I have one of the most fun people I've ever known, Connor Hill.
Yeah, that's my favorite introduction I've ever had. Yeah, that's great.
He truly is a very generous soul who drove me from a class that ended at 7 a.m. I don't know what else to say about Connor. Extreme sports, engineer, does a lot of classes, access consciousness certified facilitator, dad extraordinaire.
Which dad is actually the most extreme sport I've done yet, interestingly enough. Skydiving was easy. Dad, oh my goodness.
Yes. So he does foundation classes, conscious horse, conscious rider, 3-day body classes. I've had one of those. Best facelift I've ever had in the middle of the class. Really awesome.
Wow.
He does symphony sessions and all kinds of things. He is a man about the world, I would say. So welcome, Connor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am about the world.
Yeah, you are. I think that and the fun are very fitting. Well, it's all very fitting, but yeah. So let's just start with some of the bigger left turns in your life, because you are definitely not a follow the blueprint kind of guy.
No, I love hearing you say that, because at least in my brain, I kind of try to be, if that makes any sense at all. But or at least I think I try to be, but boy, am I not. No, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yeah, the to me, at least from my own point of view, the biggest left turn I did was probably quitting my engineering job, my super safe and like sustainable, from you can have a job that's very comfortable and easy and like you make enough money and it's not a hard life, and you don't make a lot of money, but you make a good, like enough to just, you make enough, that's a good word for it. And I was like, this is not enough for me. So quitting that job and backpacking through, and like making the choice to backpack through New Zealand and Nepal and Malaysia, and hiking through the Himalayas, and then going to Thailand and getting my advanced open water and scuba on the islands over the course of like 2 or 3 weeks. That was my biggest one. I would say.
I didn't know all of that about you. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was all right before that was after I had taken a foundation class with Access Consciousness. So I had had a bars class, I had a foundation class, and then I did all this. And after I did all this, I went to my first, what is now the Choice for Possibilities class. And so I would say, not knowing it, it was a big left turn to, have my sister run my bars.
Right.
Just the choice to say, yeah, I'll do that. And the one that really no one made sense to no one was my choice to quit my engineering job. That was, from the like going very well, could, I had won awards as the youngest person in Like there was an award my office gave out every year, and I was the youngest person to ever receive that award.
Cool.
Um, so I was working my butt on and I was enjoying myself. And, just looking 20 years in the future, I was like, I saw what I could be doing. And then, and just that choice to go travel, it made no sense to anyone. I had people in engineering telling me, you think you can just come back and get a new job after this? You think anyone's actually going to hire you after you just quit and you just went traveling? And I was like, whatever.
Okay,
We're,
there you go. You froze a little bit.
sorry. Yeah, I was in a field of people that a lot of people, not everybody, and it wasn't even like the people I worked closely with that had this point of view, but in the world of construction and engineering, there's a lot of people that work 60 hours a week
Yeah.
for years and years on end and never take a single day of paid time off or any time off. Like they don't take holidays, they don't take sick days. Like there are people like, I haven't taken a day off in 10 years. Like that's the coat of armor. So, and not that taking a day off is important, but their life entirely revolves around their work. Um, and not that I think that that's a bad thing, but I was just like, for me, it was good because what I was doing was helping the environment. And yet even though I hadn't traveled, I had traveled some of the world, but I had seen enough and known enough of what was going on that what I was doing wasn't really going to change everything. So,
Mm.
and if you go, well, do you think that going and traveling to Nepal is going to change everything? I didn't know, but I knew I was just going to go.
What did you get from that travel? How did that expand your universe and influence the rest of your life? Well, at least for now.
I mean, it was so huge. Like, so with access consciousness, and I'm glad you asked that because I've kind of looked at it a little bit before, but I hadn't really acknowledged it until right now, you asking me
Oh,
that.
cool. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm like, oh wow, because I hadn't even given myself self credit for the choice.
Yeah. That's a
you know
big
like like Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, says choice creates. And I am just now with you asking me that, oh, like that choice created so much that I actually did not give myself credit for. Like so much showed up in my life because of that. And my life actually got like way easier. It was easier for me to, you know, not, it was easier for me to choose for me guilt free.
great. Yes.
And, because, and so I would say after some years of coming back after that, I gave a lot of that up and I kind of forgot why, but I just realized, oh, actually, it was just that my choice created it. And
Mhm.
it's not like I need access consciousness or anything else to be the source. It's just I am the source and my choice created. And
Yeah.
so like some of the things, like I said, I didn't like coming during that travel, there was just so much because I also went without a cell phone or a computer.
Wow.
So like because I was like, I just want to disconnect from
Now
technology.
that's a left turn right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like add that to it. So like I was traveling, and I booked accommodation based on finding internet cafes or whatever, but I had no cell phone, no laptop, backpack, and I actually took my took my skydiving rig with me, which I discovered I only used like once. So
Uh-huh.
which was actually a very good skydive, but I didn't really need to bring my skydiving rig, my parachute with me on the entire adventures just for that. I assumed I was going to do a lot more skydiving than I did. Um yeah, I just learned so much. Like so like when I because I started my travels in New Zealand,
Mm-hmm.
and I had and and I did this really cool thing in New Zealand. So for anybody that knows anything about New Zealand is probably the quote unquote cleanest country in the
Mm-hmm.
world, from at least what I've experienced. And when I say clean, I mean like as far as the environment is concerned. And I've what I learned from being there from them is really just it has to be the cleanest, because if it's not, they notice it really fast because it's so small.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the effects, like the effects that you see in the United States might take decades to show up, whereas in New Zealand it only takes a few years.
Interesting. Wow.
So in New Zealand they're really clean, and I got to go on this fishing expedition, this deep sea fishing thing, which I've never been a fisherman person, but I don't know. I really did a good job of choosing what was light for me on this adventure this whole
Cool.
time. And I went deep sea fishing with this kid. We caught red snapper, and it was this kid, literally, because he was 18 and he had just his when he was a young kid, like 12, his dad was a deep sea fishing captain. And but then because of money, the kid's dad had to give up the boat. But the kid at 12 years old, when his dad gave up the boat, was like, I'm going to be a deep sea fishing captain. Like, that's my dream. And so when the kid turned 18 and he could do it, his dad was like, I will do everything I can to help you. And so they bought a boat together, and that's what he was doing. So I went this with this 18-year
Cool.
old kid, and he was so excited. He was like, oh my God, I've never seen fish this big. And he told us all about how we were catching, every fish we caught was like bigger than he could imagine. Like, he's like, we never used to catch fish these big when I was a kid. And he talked about how because they just got overfished,
Mm.
they were only keeping the biggest fish, where actually what you want to do is give back the biggest fish and kind of keep the medium-sized fish and not keep too many, so that
Mm-hmm.
they can grow. Because if you're only catching the big fish, like, depending on your point of view, what ends up showing up is that there are no big fish, and there are only, like, the fish are like, oh, you whether it's, I don't really want to like instill a point of view of evolution, but it's like from his point of view, it was the fishes were saying, well, we get killed if we're big, so don't grow any bigger.
Choice creates.
Choice creates, exactly. Hey, I'm not going to get any bigger because apparently all those big ones keep disappearing, or or whatever, or the genes of the small fish are the only ones that survives because of the genes of the big fish are all getting thrown away. So he just talked about how in less than 10 years it went from they were had a difficult time catching any red snapper at all, to now we had this day of like, I've caught like 10 fish.
Snapper City.
Snapper City. And yeah, and it was just very fun doing that with him because he was so excited. And then I didn't he didn't like give me a whole fish. I just had like one fillet that I took, and he told us that you can go to the restaurant right across the street and they'll fix it up for you. So I had it cooked. I also had some of it with just like raw with lemon on top, which was so good. He's like, yeah, let's just eat it right here. So that was
Wow.
just really fun. Yeah. Um, and that's so I also saw the glaciers. Like, people talk about global warming and everything, and I saw glaciers that are now like half the size of what they were, and when I was there, which is more than 10 years ago. So um, there was that element of New Zealand. And then I went to Nepal, which Nepal was just very, very dirty and
Mm.
impoverished. And it was very depressing for me personally at the time. I was not doing a good job of interesting point of view.
Mm.
Um, but this was also, I would say, more so in Nepal is where I learned to really choose for me guilt free, like I said,
Mm.
because there are just so many needy people there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to go, okay, like, I'm and it's very much in a lot of the culture to use guilt
Mhm.
to get what to take, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, in India, they used to break kids' legs or chop
That
off your hand, that kind of thing.
they say, yeah, they tell you if you see a kid with broken legs on the side of the street asking for money, don't give him money because his dad probably broke his legs
Yeah, which
so
is
and
just
put him on the street so he could get money. So if you give them money, all you're doing is promoting more kids getting their
right.
legs broken to be given money on the side of the street. And
Right.
I saw a kid with his legs broken, and I was like, wow. And I saw kids on the side of the street like huffing glue. So I saw all the because I also liked to get out into it. Like I would
Yes.
when I was in when I first arrived in Nepal, I would just walk the streets all day long, and I would make sure I only ate food that was actively boiling in oil
Good idea.
because I was waking up at 5 a.m. to people, you know, regurgitating what they had eaten the day before into the toilets.
Does not sound like an invitation to
No,
Nepal.
it was. I was not. Because I was in. So I wasn't planning on going to Nepal, but I was in New Zealand, and I ended up in a place called Queenstown. And for anybody that knows about Queenstown, it is like a black hole, not in like a bad way per se, but like you can get stuck there. Like so many of the people I met in Queenstown, New Zealand, like were like, oh yeah, I arrived here 3 years ago and I was only supposed to be here for 3 days. And now I've been here for 3 years. And they're still like enjoying themselves, but it's just like everyone there. And I found myself the same way. Like after 1 week, I had been there for a week. I'm like, how am I still here right now? What is going on? And because it's beautiful and you can
Mm.
do anything and everything. You can, it's just gorgeous and it's amazing. It's just one of the best places to be, really. And I went for a walk one morning and I walked by some travel agency and there was just this like hiking Mount Everest. But I was like, I'm sure everybody does Everest. And then there was this other thing called the Annapurna Circuit, which I'm like, I've never even heard of that.
Yeah.
And it was like a longer adventure than hiking Everest. So I just started crying at the even thought of that, not from like
Wow.
sadness, but it was just like, I was just like, this is weird.
Wow.
So I was just like, okay, I'm doing it. And so that day I just chose to go to Nepal. And I say that because when I flew to Nepal, I remember I was sitting in a window seat and I was looking out the window and I was like, oh, damn, I don't know if I'm prepared for this. And I was just like, I better be, because
Yep.
prior to that point, anywhere I had ever traveled to had like a McDonald's or,
Right.
you know,
Something.
something. But this had no McDonald's and and it was just like flying into Kathmandu. I was like, oh, damn, I hope I'm prepared for this. So, and I wasn't prepared, but I still figured my way along anyway.
Yes, you would manage
Yeah.
somehow.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So
10
it was
second increments.
exactly 10-second increments is right. So it was, I mean, it was an epic choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Sometimes our left turns, they don't gift us what we think they're going to. It's just but they are enormous gifts anyway.
Yeah. And I would probably say that as well with access consciousness, but my mom had already done a 7-day event, which is now the 6-day event. My
Uh-huh.
sister was a certified facilitator and doing 7-day events, and she was actually even hosting Gary for the choice for she was one of the hosts for the class for Gary's choice for possibilities that we were doing in Denver when I went to my first, well, what was level 2 and 3 at the time. So I didn't exactly have like a bunch of family. However, every single one, not a single one of my friends was interested in me doing access consciousness. So I guess you could say
Not a
that.
big engineering thing.
No, no, no.
Not very linear.
Mm-mm. No, engineers are funny though, because with access consciousness, it actually works for engineers because a lot of engineers are willing to do something that works. They're like, all right,
Okay.
if you're like, this works, they're like, okay, I'll try it.
Okay.
if you try to tell them about the magic and stuff, they might be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you're like, do this thing, it works. And if they're like, oh, if it doesn't require much effort for them to do, and you tell them it works, they'll try it. And if it works, they'll keep going. They're pragmatic. Let's put it that way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
The access consciousness is very pragmatic. So it works on that regard. But as far as, it's funny talking, you said with these left turns, it's always like where other people are going, what are you choosing? It's interesting to see where different, I hadn't looked at this before, where different groups of people,
Yes.
this group was okay with me choosing this, and this group was totally not okay. Like
Yes.
friends, not okay with me choosing access consciousness.
Wow. Are they
Yeah.
still friends?
Not, I mean,
Yes, and yeah, believe me, I get that. Yeah.
it's like, I'm always here for them if they ever want to get their bars
Yeah.
run. And it, I guess what I would say, I'm noticing where I'm so different.
Yes.
It took me many years to realize this, but like when my sister said, hey, I learned of this new thing called access bars, you want to try it? I said yes. It was easy.
Mm-hmm.
I've
I
said,
don't get that you say no a lot to anything that's kind of adventuresome or new or interesting or
good point. Maybe I need to learn how to
I
say
don't know. Sounds like you've had a pretty exciting life already.
I have. You're so correct on that. Yep, I have. And so, yeah, not many friends. In fact, only one friend ever took me up on getting their bars run, and out of, at least more than 20 people. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I can tell, I can feel it. Because it's all over Facebook, and that's pretty much my life now. It's like I can tell they're all like, it's very weird. It's
Yes.
very weird.
This is kind of like a gender reveal. We now have a weird reveal that I think comes
That
to
is a very good way to put it. We do have a weird reveal. Yes.
reveal.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's
That's a
great.
very good. I'm like, I've always been weird. How is it that this is a surprise for
Yeah.
you?
Yes, exactly. How is this a surprise?
Yeah. So choosing all of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Are there other left turns since the travel that come to mind in excess?
Travel access. Not at the moment. I hadn't really, you really sparked some acknowledgement of left turns that I hadn't previously recognized with left turns. Um, you know, especially looking at them like 12 years later. So,
How about being a parent?
yeah,
I don't get you're a normal parent in some ways.
no, I'm not. And it's funny because I was thinking last night, a lot of people told me in my life that I was going to be a good dad. And I think that's because, like you said, I'm very fun.
Yes.
But I'm pretty convinced I'm really crap at teaching my son how to brush his teeth.
He's not even two.
But he's like supposed to know, and sometimes he wakes up with bad breath. So I don't know. These are the things that I find interesting.
Yes.
I talk to. There's so much rightness in all of it. I talked to a dentist, and they're like, "Have you been to the dentist yet for your?" At the time, it was just 1.5, 18-month-old son, and I was like, "No," and they're like, "Oh, well, we can still work." I'm like, "What is? You're acting like it's the end of the world if they haven't seen the dentist." And so we'll see. But yeah, I don't consider myself so good at the teaching him how to brush teeth or teaching him to potty train or probably a few other things.
And what if you didn't have to have any judgment with it?
Yeah. 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 That would be a pretty big left turn to
Yes.
parent without judgment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Challenge is up there,
Yeah.
Connor.
I like challenges.
I know you do.
You bring it on. Oh, thanks for that.
Parenting without judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I guess, you bring it up, and I wouldn't be surprised if I don't, kind of like the left turns we talked about here today. I probably won't. I might. I shouldn't say probably. I'm like, what would it take for me to acknowledge it sooner,
Yes.
rather than 12 years from now?
Yes. Exactly.
So, I guess, yeah, I should say I can tell it. We parent very different, especially because of how Sebastian shows up in the world. Like with us just dropping him off at daycare today, like he brought smiles on the faces of most of the people there. And while all the other kids are like trying to be, proper and obedient, he's just like, ooh, what about this over here? What about that over there? And like the daycare ladies were just, one of them was just like laughing the whole time. You can tell she's just already in love with him. So
Kind of like father, like son. What's this? I'll
yeah.
go there.
Yes, exactly. That said, actually, it was really, you know, I was facilitating a class with Chandana Bawa in India, and she's one of the Conscious Parents, Conscious Kids facilitators.
Uh-huh.
And during our foundation class, someone said, oh, the apple doesn't too far from the fall too far from the tree. And I was like, oh, that is why Access Consciousness has the dandelion.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because it's not about the apple falling not far from the tree.
Yeah.
It's about the seed floating off super far away.
Yeah.
Like that would definitely probably, no, you know what? You are correct. Very huge left turn in how I do parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Most, if not all, parents I've met want their child to be like them.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't have that. I don't have the point of view that this apple needs to stay close to this tree at
Right.
all.
Yeah. It's kind of like, who are you, Sebastian? What's up? What are
Yeah.
you choosing today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I've had that energy when I was around you and Sebastian.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Connor. This was a really fun interview, and I'm so glad you came on.
Thank you, Marilyn. It was really fun. And I'm super grateful for you asking your questions and helping me see things differently.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining this episode of Left Turn. I wonder what embracing left turns could create in your life. What magical possibilities might show up. Remember, when you choose left turns, you are joining a group of the most creative and brilliant people the world has ever known.